And, of course, it's top analyst Jay Bilas will handle the duties. He's here with us. Mr. Bilas, we appreciate you, sir. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be back in Indiana. And, Jim, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
We appreciate you. And the break was talking about the job itself is something I know you love, but the travel, and I don't think people get the travel, and they say, oh, you just sit on a plane. No, it's not that, man. It is, you got to get to the airport. You've got to sit, and it's, you could be on a plane with, who was it that just got taken off the other day?
OBJ.
Yes, you could have been on a plane with OBJ, but it's the travel and where you're going. You're all over the place, man.
Yeah, this is honestly the hardest travel year I've ever had early on. I've already done 15 games, I'd say. And so I've been to San Diego for that aircraft carrier game. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So San Diego and back. I've been to Maui, Portland. We had 12 games in 7 days between Maui and Portland. Came back. I had less than 24 hours to get here. And then I go from here straight to London for a game between Kentucky and Michigan, then to New York for the Jimmy V Classic. And then I have more after that I haven't even contemplated just because I want to keep some sort of sanity. But I don't think anybody feels sorry for me, Jim. I mean, I sit in the best seat in the house every game. I'm certainly not complaining, but travel is the only downside of this job, and anybody in any industry that travels, people think it's so glamorous, and and there are great parts to it. But you're right. Like when the TSA personnel by name, you got a problem. And I know the TSA personnel by name.
A very intelligent person. If you don't know, Jay is an attorney. And so I think I can answer my next question with myself, why you didn't go into coaching, because you're obviously a very intelligent person. So you didn't go into coaching. You don't want to live through all that because you could have done anything when the TV instead. But yeah, the TV route did you ever think about coaching?
Oh yeah. I was an assistant at Duke. I was a graduate assistant for 3 years in the early 90s when Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley, and Grant Hill were there. So obviously I did a fabulous job coaching. And I thought I was going to get into it, but I was getting married after my 3rd year as an assistant at Duke. And when I sat down with my wife, my future wife, and we were talking about, what we were going to do. And I told her about, okay, coaching, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have to get a job somewhere else. And then if I do well, maybe I'll get the head coaching job at Illinois State, and we'll live in normal Illinois. And if I don't screw that up, maybe we get the job at Clemson. And if I don't screw that up, then we can get maybe the job you really want, or a job you really want. And she was going, that sounds like 15 years of moving around and waiting and taking kids out of school. And so that didn't go over very well. But I had a law degree. And so, I wanted her more than I wanted to be a coach. So we just decided that it was best for our family going another direction. But I've been, the broadcast thing worked out. I was just practicing law and started doing radio broadcasting on the side to keep my sanity. And it worked out for me. I was pretty lucky, but I've had offers to get back into basketball on the competitive side over the years. But for one family reason or another, I've said no. And now that I'm going to be 59 and, right around the Christmas holiday, and I'm kind of looking at my life going, I don't know if I want to jump back into, any kind of cauldron like coaching or front office stuff right now, but because it might affect my summer golf schedule.
Rick Bozich joins us now from WDRB.com. Do you know Rick? I'm sure from over the years.
Who doesn't know Rick Bozich, the Hall of Famer? Everybody knows Rick.
I assumed.
When he walks into the room, everything stops. People are asking for autographs and they want advice on their careers. But nobody asks for fashion advice from Rick. I've noticed that.
Yeah, there's a reason. There is a reason.
I had to take my dog to the doggy daycare this morning because last week when we were on the air, I had to abruptly end our interview because she started barking.
Ruby got upset with the neighbors.
Is Ruby, Rick? I don't mean to take over this interview, but is when you go to doggy daycare, is Ruby thrilled to death to go, and then when you pick her up, she's like, I'd rather not leave.
Pretty much you nailed it. She's very excited and her tail's wagging and her ears are flopping. And then when she gets back in the car, she gives me the
Yeah, that's my dog. Same thing.
It's the
I'm
fun
sure it's
time,
not
man.
us. I'm sure it's a dog thing. It has nothing to do with dog family issues.
Rick's a walker, man. He's always out. Doesn't matter the way. He's like the weather, the mailman. It doesn't matter. Snow, sleet, rain. He's always out there. He's got his coffee in his hand now. I can see.
Yes, sir. I was late night at the KFC Yum Center last night, so I had to perk back up.
Yeah, Jay, you could be in Louisville. That could be one of the stops right now that on your coaching career. That would not be a fun one to be. Rick, Louisville.
No,
where are
they
now?
love me in
4-8?
Louisville. They love
Well, no,
me in
Louisville loves you. I'm just saying.
Without me, they wouldn't have the '86 championship banner hanging up there. They love me there.
Oh my God.
Oh, man.
Rick, did you know you were on the same? Was it you got cut by the same coach that cut Steve Popovich, or you were
Greg Popovich? That's correct. Bill Metcalf was the varsity coach at Merrillville High School, just south of Gary. Greg's 4 years older than me. He got cut as a sophomore and came back and started for 2 years and went to the Air Force. I got cut as a junior and never made it back and went to journalism school. We both made the right decision.
Oh man. And speaking of, I'm sorry, you have great Bob Knight stories. When you worked at him, Hubert Davis talked about that yesterday. He enjoyed his time at ESPN. He had the opportunity to work with Coach Bob Knight then, and Rick. Rick has some great stories as a student writer getting kicked off the bus by Bob Knight. Where was that?
Iowa City. I wasn't kicked off the bus. I was late to the bus. I'll give you the real Cliff Notes version. But back in the day, Coach Knight let the student newspaper travel with the team, and that was the 75 team, which was maybe better than the 76 team. They were rolling undefeated. Back then, it was Saturday, Monday games. Saturday was in Iowa City. Monday was in Minnesota. And back then, you also had to win the Big Ten to go to the NCAA tournament. So after a Saturday night game in Iowa City in the old field house, I didn't have a paper on Sunday, the student paper. So I went up after I did my interviews to the SID office at Iowa City to get my stats and maybe get a few extra ones for some of the players. And another Big Ten game was on the radio, which was going to have an impact on who was second place to Indiana. So I looked down the floor and the players were still there. So I figured I could duck my head back in and listen to a few more minutes and get the latest score and give it to everybody and be a hero. And the second time I looked back out on the floor, they were all gone. And I panicked. And I grabbed my stuff and ran out to the parking lot, and the bus was pulling away. And, I had no money, no credit card. I don't know what would happen to me. And luckily, some of the players saw me and they stopped the bus. And I walked over to the bus, and as I got to the door, the bus pulled away a second time. And it went about 20 feet, and it stopped, and the door opened, and I walked over, and Coach Knight said, "Where in the hell do you think you've been?" And I started to say something. He goes, "I don't give a shit what your explanation is. Even IDS almost got left in Iowa City. Now go sit your ass down." And the players erupted in joy because for once they got somebody else got their butt chewed out instead of them. And after that, I was 20 minutes early for every bus the rest of my life.
Oh my God. I'd like to see Knight describe to the bus driver how to pull off the perfect pull up and stop move with a bus. Doing it with a car is easy, but that's hilarious stuff. Jay, I'm sure, do you have the opportunity to work with him at ESPN as well, I'm sure?
Oh, yeah. I spent a lot of time with Coach Knight. We actually used to go on golf trips together almost every summer for a number of years. We went a couple times to Ireland and Scotland, other destinations. And he was fantastic to play golf with. I mean, it was
because
like
he was terrible, right?
No, he wasn't too bad, really. Everybody sees that video, him and Sam Carmichael, where he's trying to get out of a bunker and cursing and all that stuff. But I always, Coach Knight is a great companion, and we spent a lot of time together. But on the times that we would go play golf, we were playing we were playing overseas one time, and I was playing with Coach and his college roommate Gary Gearhart from Ohio State, and he had hit a ball short of a green, and we were walking up to the green, and he says to me, "Hey, let me borrow your sand wedge." And so I gave it to him, and he hits his shot, and then I noticed he had his sand wedge with him. And I said, "Well, why did you need my sand wedge if you got yours?" And he says, "Because if I hit a bad shot, I didn't want to throw mine." And I couldn't tell whether he was serious or it was just all a joke setup. But what was amazing to me, Jim and Rick, was wherever we were in the world, people recognized him. And we're somewhere in the outer regions of Scotland playing some no-name golf course because he wouldn't shell out for the really good ones. And people would come up, they'd want pictures, and some older gentleman and his wife came up, and he says, "Coach, I'd love to get my a picture made with you and my wife." And Coach Knight's sitting down, and the woman walks up to him. She was standing next to him, and he kind of put his arm around her waist, and the guy's taking the picture, and then he brings the camera down, and he says, "Coach, I don't think I've ever seen my wife smile like that." And Knight, without missing a beat, says, "Well, you don't know where I have my hand."
Oh man, he saved the good ones. He saved the good ones.